Today I'm going to talk about heirloom tomatoes. How many of you have ever eaten a garden fresh tomato or grown your own tomatoes from home? Is there a difference between the ones you buy in a grocery store versus what you would get from a farmer's market? How about an heirloom tomato? Do you think you've ever eaten one? Does anyone know the difference or what defines a tomato as an heirloom? Today I'll enlighten you on heirloom tomatoes, how they were discovered, consumption methods, and growing considerations. Beginning with heritage and history, heirlooms are like the grandfather of seeds. They are unique and beautiful and often very, very flavorful. When you think of an heirloom, you often think of a family heirloom. So a family heirloom is a valuable object passed down from generation to generation in a single family. So as that translates into seed varieties, it's a traditional variety of seed that is tried and true, produces the same tomato year after year. The difference between a hybrid and an heirloom and a hybrid is an heirloom is a cross between two parent plants, and that may be to make it more durable for travel, for going to big box stores. But when you save the seed, you more than likely will get a different tomato. So it might be more like one of the parent plants. It will give you a tomato, but it may not be the same. So Lee Henrich quoted in his article on Seed Wars, Heirloom versus Hybrid, that in 1946, blight destroyed 86% of U.S. oats, including 30 oat varieties, and they were all bred from a single genetic parent. Uniformity breeds vulnerability, meaning that all of these same varieties that were supposed to be really, really good and hold up well, that year they had some, that one of that parent varieties was resistant to a disease that affected all of that, a mass amount, and that was a big deal. So hybrid plants are not always the best option. Next, we'll talk about sowing and growing and tips for growing heirloom tomatoes. So if you are like me and you want to start seedlings at home, you want to start them 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date. This gives them enough time to grow strong, but not too much time that they get too big in your house. Hardening off is a term that we use to describe getting them used to being outside in the direct sunlight and getting them used to the wind. You want to plant tomato plants deep into the ground so they have a bigger, more structured root system. Pruning, staking, and trellising are all important in growing tomatoes to keep them from getting diseases easier with laying down on the ground or getting so they get enough airflow. Even watering schedule helps them to grow evenly and not rupture when they get too much water. You want to pick them before rain comes because they can, like I said, they can split if they are ripe and they get too full. And when you're going to pick them and they're ripe, you want to not water or pick them on a day that it didn't rain. That way they are full of flavor and not diluted by the rain and the water. So Barbara Gillette quoted in her article on the 7 stages of tomato plant growth, tomato flowers pollinate themselves with the help of wind, insects like bumblebees, and movement around the plants. So if you are trellising your plants, you want to make sure that you give them a little shake when you move by, because that's how they pollinate. They don't necessarily need like squash to have a male and a female. They pollinate themselves. So tomato plants are not always beautiful. They do have a little more of a rough appearance, but they're always delicious. Now that we know the history and ways of growing them, let's talk about the best way of all to enjoy them, right? So great to eat right out of the garden when they're ripe. canned, fresh, canned, and frozen. So some fresh options are a good old tomato sandwich. That's what we like on the first tomatoes we pick of the year. Sliced fresh salsa or pico de gallo. Fried green tomatoes are really, really good. And tomato pie. I did make that last year and it was absolutely amazing. Canning tomatoes, you can do tomato sauce, chili sauce, pizza sauce, marinara, tomato soup. Add some basil into the soup and it's really, really good. So Angela Williams Douay quoted in her complete guide to food preservation that acidification, to ensure safe acidity in whole, crushed, and tomato juice, add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice or half a teaspoon of citric acid to your quart jars. And for pints, you want to use 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or a 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid. And this helps to keep those low acidic vegetables from spoiling. It helps to preserve them. And then preservation with freezing. A lot of times if I get a big influx of tomatoes at the end of this season, I will freeze them and then can them later on in the year when I have more time. You can also freeze tomato paste, which is good, and freeze or dehydrate them. So now that you know about heirloom tomatoes, their heritage, how they grow, and how to use them in meals and food, what do you think of them? Have you ever eaten an amazing tomato that had lots and lots of flavor? It was probably an heirloom. If you save those seeds, you'll be able to have that next year in your garden. Thank you.